All right, good morning, folks. I'm showing 9 o'clock, and welcome to today's school board workshop. Colleagues, we'll go through each item on the agenda, and as usual, if you have any questions or comments, let us know. And Superintendent, anytime you have something, just give it to us, okay? All right, so the first item of business is Section 2, approval of the agenda, and we do have a couple of changes. So let me read those very quickly. Added item 7.21, Florida Safe Schools Assessment Tool District Best Practices Assessment Report for 2025-2026. And then also Superintendent's Human Resources Recommendations, added item 8.10, suspension, added item 8.11, position allocation to Pineview School Principal. All right, so those are the changes. And that takes us to Section 3, recognitions. 3.1, recognition of Fort Walton Beach High School Lady Vikings Softball Team 2025, Florida High School Athletic Association Class 4A Softball State Champions, presented by Superintendent Chambers. We have no items on Section 4. Section 5 will be public comment for agenda items. And then Section 6 will be committee and staff reports. 6.1 is the Liza Jackson Preparatory School basic financial statements and supplementary information for the year ended June 30th, 2025, presented by Ms. Perry, Chief Financial Officer.
And Dr. White.
Yes, sir.
And if you don't mind,
sure.
we have some folks from Food Services, right, and want to go ahead and do that recognition, if you're okay with it.
Great. Superintendent, go ahead.
And so I just want to start off by welcoming our Food Services Department. We have folks with Aramark and our district folks as well, obviously combined as one solid team. And this is an extension of once a month bringing forward different departments. I just want to say to this group, and then obviously the multiple people who are not here this morning with us, and just thanking you for the work that you do. We talk all the time about what's up here on the screen and it's OCSD family. And we talk about in our principal meetings where it takes each and every one of us to have a gear for all the gears to work if we're going to make this big operation make a difference in the lives of students. And you think about what happens every single day. There's multiple students who come to school where the consistent meals that they have will be breakfast and lunch. And that's because of the work that you all do. And sometimes behind the scenes, but not forgotten, and probably could receive even more recognition than something like this. But just want to say thank you for the great work that you do. I want Mr. Meyer to come forward, and I know he has some words, then we'll have a couple of you come forward, and our school board members might also have some words for each of you. So just appreciate what you do.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. Dr. White, board members, good morning. I too want to thank you guys for everything you do each day. It's important to our students and our families. And each day we did an average the last week of September, over 18,000 meals are served. So you start to add that up, that's a lot of work early in the morning to make sure our students are fed and ready to learn. So Mr. Steve Anderson runs our food service with Alicia Taylor running the Aramark side of things. And again, the kitchen staffs are not here because we have a teacher work day. But we can't thank you guys enough for everything that you do. Mr. Anderson, if you want to say a few things, again, thank you guys for everything that you do for this district.
And while Mr. Anderson's coming up, just want you all to be prepared because each time we do this, we have one person that's going to do a surprise 5-minute speech about what your department means for you. So just be prepared.
Alicia is the GM for Aramark, and so we voted who's going to come up and talk, and I lost, so I'm up here speaking now. So thank you, Alicia. Real quick, Superintendent, board members, we appreciate that you're doing this. I think you said it best that we could thank them and show appreciation so much more than even I do. I want each one of you to know how much we appreciate the work that you do, for the service that you provide to our students, and just thank you for doing this as a monthly thing. I think that's a great thing to do, and we appreciate it.
And Dr. White, if you don't mind, I just want to share just a quick story. When I was in school, whether it be elementary, middle school, or high school, I was the person who loved lunch food. And still to this day, when you go into schools, the smell of it, it just brings me back to my schooling days. But I could give you some stories about my elementary school. It was awesome. But again, so just great memories of being a student myself in the lunchroom. It was just a great thing.
Yeah. Well, I'll just start off and say that after all those years in those schools, I know how important the school food service program is. And we just appreciate the good work that you're doing. And Superintendent, my 5-year-old grandson is a little bit like you. He buys his lunch every day, and he loves it. So I thank you for all that you do. Colleagues, anything else?
Well, from owning a restaurant, and Mr. Destin will agree with this, what people don't realize is you guys have to show up every day and be on every single day, and that gets monotonous and the grind. Other jobs, you don't have to be on. You got to produce that every single day, and that's the tough part about the food service, is and it's never ending, and the next day is like Groundhog Day, and you just got to keep going and keep going. So I appreciate that, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Well, I just think school lunches have come a long way since when I was in school. The variety and the things you do to try and keep it, so the students enjoy it more and have more choices. And I know that's got to be difficult. You have a tough audience to feed and everything. And there's a lot of competition now in the world with places that you can get food. But it's just so important that they have those quality meals. Like you said, many of them, 2 of them a day. And many of them, that may be what they have. It might be junk food the other time. So I very much appreciate what you do, and because that's so important. A child cannot learn if they're sitting there hungry, and that's all they're thinking about. And you make a big difference in their total education. So thank you all.
I have to echo all of the sentiments of the previous speakers. I'm in the food service industry myself with restaurants, been doing it since I was 15. He's right, there's no off switch. You got to be on your A game every day, and you guys do bigger volumes than the biggest restaurants in Destin, and you do it every day, and that is something remarkable. Like Ms. Vanchek said, you can't teach children if they're hungry. It's a prerequisite. It is arguably the most vital part of being able to do the job of the school district, which is the education part. They will not learn if they've got their stomachs hungry. You can't. You got to meet that, check that box. And finally, what the superintendent said, that's exactly what's going on here. You are vital parts of this cog in this very large machine. And without you, it doesn't run. That's a testament to you guys and the hard work that you pour into it. So thank you.
All right. Anything else, Sue?
Do you all remember the chicken patty with the mashed potatoes and gravy and the little bread? And then the Frito bake? Good things.
Now, what about the flying saucers? You know what a flying saucer is?
No, ma'am.
Do you, Lamar? You remember?
I think I remember.
Okay, so it's a piece of bologna with a scoop of, you know what it is, don't you? Tell me what it is. Yeah, okay. Got bologna and then what? Mashed potatoes and a slice of American cheese. Okay, yeah.
That sounds incredible. It's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
Okay, we're all good? All right, colleagues. So we'll go ahead now and move through the business agenda.
Thank you all.
We go to the consent agenda, section 7. First of all will be approval. 7.2 will be approval of the minutes of the workshop September 22nd, minutes of the regular meeting September 22nd, all recommended by the superintendent. 7.3 is appropriation of District 1 School Board member capital outlay funds to Choctawhatchee High School for risers in the amount of $8,000, presented by myself and recommended by the superintendent. 7.4 is appropriation of District 1 School Board member capital outlay funds to Meigs Middle School for clear touch panels in the amount of $24,447.10, presented by myself and recommended by the superintendent. 7.5 is appropriation of District 3 School Board member capital outlay funds to Baker School for a new band trailer in the amount of $4,310, presented by Ms. Linda Vanchek and recommended by the superintendent.
Can I jump in and say
Sure.
to Ms. Vanchek, that's a big deal. I know that they got a flat tire coming back from a game, and I saw all the commotion online. I'm so thrilled that you stepped in and are stepping up for these folks, because that's an important piece of equipment they gotta have.
Well, the problem was, and I learned this, they only had a single axle thing, and when the tire goes out, but they got it, now this one's double axle, so even if they lose one tire, they can, and keep on coming down, but they, when they travel a lot, they have to have that, so, yeah. Of course, glad to do, and I think that one they had was decades old, so glad to replace it.
Double axle's the key.
Yep, double axle.
All right, 7.6, appropriation of District 4 School Board Member Capital Outlay Funds to Choctaw High School for risers in the amount of $5,667 by Mr. Tim Bryant, recommended by the superintendent. 7.7, invoices to be approved for payment, presented by Ms. Perry and recommended by the superintendent. 7.8, school donations by Ms. Perry and recommended by the superintendent.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Just want to highlight that, $238,259.16. But if you look at that, I just want to talk about one and ask a question. Student Services was requesting donation acceptance, $20,000 from Bring Hope Now, Inc. Can we get a little elaboration on that?
So that's part of our new care crew. As you know, we used to have Hope Squad. So this was part of the boat race that we talked about, where they went out there, they competed, they represented the school district. But this is supporting our suicide prevention and awareness program and able to continue to do the things that we've done historically to make a difference in that area.
Excellent.
All right, very good, thank you. All right, 7.9, tag on bid purchase over $50,000 to Mohawk Lifts, presented by Mr. Wyndham and recommended by the superintendent. 7.10, tag on bid purchase over $50,000 to Lancaster Johnson and Associates, presented by Mr. Wyndham and recommended by the superintendent. 7.11, tag on bid purchase over $50,000 to Lancaster Johnson and Associates, presented by Mr. Wyndham and recommended by the superintendent.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
can I invite Mr. Wyndham to come up? I've got a quick question about this one. Mr. Wyndham, I won't belabor this one too much. So the first Lancaster and Johnson one, I went through kind of with a fine-tooth comb, no problems. The equipment that we're sourcing from those guys, I can't find it anywhere. Basically much cheaper than what they're offering us in that one. But 7-Eleven's not good. Just rough of the back of the cocktail napkin, I'm looking at, on item 1, about $1,400 cheaper. Item 2, the stainless steel hot food tables, they've quoted us, they're about $1,000 a piece cheaper in 2 of them. With everything, that's about $2,500. The utility counter was not that bad. The one that really drove me a little bit nuts was the cashier counter, because they're going to offer us 2 cashier counters. They're stainless steel boxes that have some utility to them that is a little bit different than a normal standard piece of equipment. But I mean, we can get them on Restaurant Supply, or they could even get them from restaurantsupply.com for $3,400. They got them quoted at $6,200. That's $5,700 over what you can find. So between now and tonight, can you maybe give them a ring? See if they can justify where they got those prices? Because there was nothing wrong with the one that was right before it, but this one's a little bit different.
Right, and what the food service department goes through this tag-on contract, they get quotes from multiple vendors. And this one, I think we had 2 quotes come in. But, so they're quoting it amongst the contractors on this bid. But I will check it out.
Okay, because I'm showing about 12 grand.
Yeah, that's quite a bit different. We'll check that out.
Yeah, just see what they say.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
So wait a minute, so we send out for bids on all this, correct?
Well, we're actually piggybacking a bid in a school district already had. And this one, let's see, leads with Pasco
Yeah,
County.
Pasco.
Yeah, and they have multiple vendors that sell the equipment. So we get quotes amongst those vendors on that contract.
But like you said, if we find something that's a better deal, We can go with that?
We can go back to the vendor, yes.
Yeah, we can go back and, do we
See
have
what
to
we can do.
rebid that?
Make sure it's apples to apples, of course, and I'm sure you check that.
But we have to rebid that? Have the,
This was an RFQ.
yeah, right, okay, gotcha.
We quoted underneath this contract, what we
Right.
did.
Okay.
But we would definitely check that out.
Thanks,
Could
man.
you, Mr. Wyndham, could you explain just briefly what a tag-on bid is?
Well, normally a piggyback or tag-on bid, I mean, you're basically adopting the term, conditions, pricing from that,
From someone else?
contractor.
From
Yes, sir.
someone else. So in
Right.
this case, it was
This
Pasco
is a little bit
County.
different. This is kind of like discount bid. It's got multiple vendors. So we're taking those vendors and getting quotes from them inside this contract. So it's bid, basically on the catalog discount, you get a discount off that,
Yes, sir.
the stated price.
Okay.
In this case, we're getting those, quotes from multiple vendors.
Right. But by doing this avoids having to go through our district conducting a bid.
Yes, sir. It's another avenue.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
right. And it's frequently used.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Well, my only concern is that
Cost.
is cost, because at some point, while Pasco may have got the best deal out of all the governmental entities, they could still be gouged.
Yeah,
And we tag on to it, and we're still getting gouged.
Like everybody.
Yeah, because I know that, I've been in the food service business long enough to know how these guys look at you from a customer standpoint. They go, well, that's a mom and pop shop, but that's a governmental entity, and that's not real money. And they know that if we just fluff it in and tuck it in here, so as long as they know we're interested in making sure that it's competitive, I think we might be able to knock a few bucks off. Just see what they say.
We sure will.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
That's good.
All right, so 7.12, tag-on bid purchase over $50,000 to William Scotsman, presented by Mr. Wyndham and recommended by the superintendent. 7.13, exhibited purchase over $50,000, estimated figures for Advanced International Certificate of Education, ACE, and Advanced Placement Examinations, presented by Mr. Wyndham and recommended by the superintendent. 7.14, sale and disposal of surplus property, presented by Mr. McElroy, maintenance, and recommended by the superintendent. 7.15, agreement between Gates Aerospace Institute Academy, Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, and the School Board of Okaloosa County, presented by Ms. Holly Tu, Director 1, Curriculum and Instruction, and recommended by the superintendent.
Excuse me, can we go back to surplus property, please?
Okay, 7.14.
Yep, right. So when we sell property like that, as Mr., the funds that we get, all that, does that just go back into your maintenance? Where does it go?
No, ma'am.
Morning.
Morning.
Mr. White, board members, Mr. Chambers. The money from those sales of the surplus items goes back into the general budget. It does not go back into maintenance.
Okay, so it doesn't get, even though your maintenance is doing all this, still it goes back into the
Yep,
general?
we hold the sales, the auctions through surplus.
And is this done online?
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask one quick question?
sure.
It may be a Spolsky grant question or a Julie question, I'm guessing a little bit. It's on the sale and disposal list. Can somebody tell me a little bit about the Dodge Passenger van for Silver Sands? I know we've surplused it. Is there a replacement for transportation that's been arranged already? Is this thing being phased out? What's the backstory, if you know it?
I don't know all the details. My understanding is that Silver Sand purchases their own vehicles, and then when it's time to surplus it, and they'll look to replace it if there's a need.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. All right, so we were on 7:15, we got that one, and then we are moving now to 7:16. Application to the state of Florida for Youth Mental Health Awareness and Training, LEA Support Grant, TAPS 26C077, presented by Ms. Terry Schroeder, Program Director for Student Services, and recommended by the superintendent. 7.17, affiliation agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida, and Aspire at Shoal Creek, presented by Mr. John Williams, Director, Okaloosa Technical College, and recommended by the superintendent. 7.18, school affiliation agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County and Silvercrest Health and Rehabilitation Center, presented by Mr. Williams, Director, Okaloosa Technical College, and recommended by the superintendent. 7.19, amendment to the agreement between the Okaloosa County, Florida and the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida, contract number C21-3105-IT, presented by Mr. Eric Mitchell, Director, MIS and Instructional Technology, and recommended by the superintendent for approval. 7.20, request to increase internet bandwidth with Cox Communications, presented by Eric Mitchell and recommended by the superintendent. 7.21, IT seat management outsourcing agreement contract modification, change order 2, presented by Mr. Mitchell and recommended by the superintendent. 7.22, underground distribution facilities installation agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County and Florida Power and Light Company at Destin Elementary School, presented by Dr. Smith and recommended by the superintendent. 7.23, agreement to grant Florida Power and Light an underground easement at Destin Elementary, presented by Dr. Bill Smith and recommended by the superintendent. 7.24, request for course code adoption for Destin Middle School for 25-26 school year, presented by Ms. Stephanie Gillis and recommended by the superintendent.
I have a question on that.
Yes, ma'am.
So, do we already have this course now, or it's replacing something?
Yes, the current course codes are no longer valid. These are replacing those course codes.
But it's
They're
essentially the same
Same courses,
course,
yes.
just changing the code. Okay, that's what I thought.
New name, updating that.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Option for all high schools for the 25-26 school year, presented by Ms. Gillis and recommended by the superintendent. 7.26, request for course code adoption for all elementary schools for the 25-26 school year, presented by Ms. Gillis and recommended by the superintendent. And then 7.27, Florida Safe Schools Assessment Tool, District Best Practices Assessment Report for 25-26, presented by Mr. Dean and recommended by the superintendent. All right, that takes us through the consent and brings us into the superintendent's human resources recommendations. 8.1, information only, employees on admin leave. 8.2, information only, deferred retirement option program. And then 8.3, cleared certification requirements and issuance of contracts for the 25-26 school year, presented by Ms. Duron and recommended by the superintendent. 8.4, out-of-field report for the 25-26 school year by Ms. Duron, recommended by the superintendent. 8.5, employment separations presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the superintendent. 8.6, personnel recommendations presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the superintendent. 8.7, employee transfers presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the superintendent. 8.8, employees suspension presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the superintendent. 8.9, leave without pay presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the superintendent. 8.10, employees suspension presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the superintendent. And then 8.11, position allocation, Pineview School Principal, presented by Ms. Perry and recommended by the superintendent. Takes us through all the items on that section. Section 9, discussion. There are no items at this time. Section 10, program status report by the board's representative. Mr. Heinley.
I'll have that full report tonight.
Thank you, sir. All right. Mr. Attorney, any business?
No report this morning.
All right. Superintendent.
All right, have a few things this morning, and then we'll also have Mr. Spolsky come forward and give us an update on where we are with FTE. But I want to start off by saying just appreciate the work of Mr. Spolsky, Mr. Meyer, their team. We have Ms. Ross who's here, we have Ms. Meserve who's here, and I'm speaking specifically to the rezoning efforts. As you know, this has been months and months in the making, and I just appreciate the fact that not only have we gone through the hard work to put together a proposed zone, but also, more importantly, to get out to each and every school, to meet with the faculties, to meet with the parents, So this was put out with the opportunity that anyone who wants to come get information about this had the ability to come get information at each of those schools. They were on a road show, in essence, for September into October, and just appreciate getting out and sharing exactly where we are. Also, just want to continue to let the board know that we continue to look at just enrollment across the county. And when you look at the state of Florida, I think enrollment in multiple school districts is going down. And there's several factors to that. One of those factors being the availability of family empowerment scholarships. And so we continue to look at enrollment as a whole, but continue to look at enrollment from the north end, the central end, and the south end as well. That's a standing agenda item on our meetings. So we'll continue to look at it, and at a certain point in time, we'll probably have some recommendations that will come forward. You have a question there? All right. So I also want to just highlight, this has kind of come out already, but I was not at the last board meeting as I was at the FHSAA meeting. And do want to just continue to highlight our schools of excellence. And just want to make sure that we all understand that a school of excellence has to be in the 80th percentile or higher academically for 2 out of the last 3 years. And so when you look at Niceville High School, Ruckle Middle School, the STEM Academy, the Ballet Academy, Blue Water Elementary, Destin Elementary, Edge Elementary, Florosa Elementary, and Plu Elementary to receive that distinction, that is a high distinction. So just appreciate their efforts. Also want to highlight Southside Primary School, where they received an excellent designation for their VPK program during the summer. And they have a teacher there by the name of Miss Ruby Keppel, and she earned the Excellence Performance designation, and only 28% of the programs across the state of Florida received this designation. So just appreciate her and the work of Principal Bowles as well. You may realize that our school district received a $210,000 workforce grant, and that's between 2 schools, one of which being Crestview High School for welding, and the other Destin High for their applied cybersecurity. And so when we go out for these type of grants and to receive a $210,000 grant, that's significant, and it continues to show our efforts on trying to make sure that we do what we can for the local workforce, and that is important for all of our CTE programs. So just appreciate those schools, Ms. Beasley, for the work that we continue to do with career technical education.
Mr. Superintendent, question on that. Do you have somebody set aside going after those grants for all our schools? That includes the charter schools and everyone?
So we have the CTE department with Mrs. Beasley, so they're always looking for grants. Their program is grant-oriented in general, but always looking for other grants. I think our agricultural grant that we received with Laurel Hill, I think also springing over to Baker as well, is an example of CTE working with the schools to ensure that we can get those funds where we're able to get them. I was going to mention the totem pole, but I think there might be a few people here who might bring that up, so I'll move past that one. I might comment later. We do have the annual report that is finalized. Don't mind passing that down. And as you know, this is the second year of going through a process to get an annual report for the school district. And this is done in collaboration with BitWizards, and they do this for us. It's not a cost that we pay them, so they do their time and energy to put all of this together for us. Mrs. Card leads this venture, and she has to coordinate with every department, coordinate with Mr. Mers to get every picture, and then translate that over to BitWizards and work with them. This was probably I say a 4 or 5 month process, and she's probably shaking her head because it was probably longer. They had some final things that they went through back and forth to get everything where it needed to be. Last year it came out, I think the second board meeting in September. This year the first one in October. But it's a highlight to our county of what's happened the previous year. And I think this is just a great document for our parents, for the community, for realtors, for the military, and for us as a school district to tell our story. And again, I tell people all the time when I speak, one of the first things I say is we're not a perfect school district, but we are a school district that strives to do things the right way and strives to make a difference in the lives of our students. So this just highlights the efforts. And again, I couldn't be more appreciative to Ms. Card for the work that she's done. It's a heavy lift putting all this together. And Ms. Ivanchik, as you know, as a former teacher in this type of area, the
Publications.
revisions of all of this and the editing of this is significant. So I just appreciate all that work.
And what's our distribution on this particular product? Who
So
gets
this will go to our parents. This will also go on the webpage because we also have it digitally.
Okay.
So you can access it. It'll go to our community sponsors, community leaders. We send it to just multiple different entities so they can have it in their offices. So we try to get this out to as many people as possible. Now, we only print so many, but that's why we also have it electronically so we can put it on the webpage, but also send it out through our publications.
Great, yeah, that's awesome. It's fabulous.
Yeah, it
Fabulous, really good.
Couple other quick pieces, and I'm going to have Mr. Spolsky come up. As you know, and the niche report comes out every year. This has nothing to do with the school district. The niche report is something that happens nationally where they rank school districts. The previous year, we were number 7 in the niche report. This year, we're number 6 in the niche report. And they look at specifically state test scores, district rankings, graduation rate, college readiness, teacher quality. So those are some of the categories that they look at. And again, it has nothing to do with what we do. It just comes out each year. And this is just another measure of what they do, when I say they, whether it be the state, whether it be other entities, measuring school districts. So am proud of, going from 7th to 6th. But what I'm more proud of is the fact that we have our teachers, our staff, our administrators, our district staff working each day to get better from where we previously were.
And this niche report is just comparing all the 67 school districts of Florida.
So they look at all 67 school districts in Florida, but then they look at the schools and school districts across the nation, but they'll do it state by state as well.
Nice.
Okay.
And then the last update that I have is the Champions of Education. So we had our first group come forward. I shouldn't say our first group because the group will last all year, but we had our first meeting in September. It was well attended. Every single one of them, they came. We looked at the school district as a whole, where I gave a briefing of all the different areas, and then Mrs. Lightbourne and her group talked about academic and student services. We actually took them over to Edge Elementary, and they got to meet some of the students who led different discussions and then took them into a few classrooms. And then they also had the opportunity to put the VR goggles on to see the algebra and the biology in action. And you should have seen the engagement of those individuals with the VR goggles on. It was pretty neat. So just wanted to give you that update. They, from their words, they very much appreciated it, and we're looking forward to the next one, which will happen later this month, where we'll have finance, HR, and operations, and MIS giving some information to them as well. And if you're good, Dr. White, could bring Mr. Spolsky up.
Very good. Welcome, Mr. Spolsky.
Good morning, sir. Good to see the board. Good to see everyone. As Mr. Chambers mentioned in a few of his words there, our culture, our schools, our words, our strategic measures are more important than ever right now. In marketing our schools, we do a really nice job in this county. And I'm going to show this presentation as it pertains to FTE, since really our culture is part of our marketing strategy, right? In enrolling kids. State Statute 1011.62, it does require us to periodically capture and then report our FTE for funding purposes. So those 2 months, those very important months, are in October and in February, and we call those date certain periods where we actually gather that number through our computers, but also it equates to really students in seats. All right, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit about how FTE, full-time equivalents, works that out in the big number in the scheme. So these are the cost factors, and this is really important for us to look at as we break it down into basic versus the grade levels, the 9-12 basic, the 4-8 basic, and of course the little ones, the pre-K to 3 basic. And you can see those cost factors are categorized under program numbers, 101, 102, 103. For the majority of our students, the 4-8 basic is a 1 factor, and a 9-12 you can see is a little less than 1. So it's really important to just kind of keep program cost factors on the side as we start looking at some scenarios or some simulations. You can see if it's over 1, if they're a high level 4 or 5 in our ESE, the program cost factor is much larger. And then there is a little bit of an increase for our ESOL or ELL students of 1165. And I throw those up there for you to kind of see how the state is working the FEFP program cost factors for each of those areas. So this is a scenario now, just something to think about for us and the public out there, is if we had 23 students at a middle school and they're out there traveling through our schools, right? And kids come to our district and leave our district for a bunch of different reasons. But in this scenario, if we're going to capture like we did last week in that week from October 6th to October 10th, and there was 23 students in school, and then 1 transferred and 2 were absent during that week, this is kind of how that scenario plays out. So you can't count the students that are absent, right? So we're at 20 students, and then you would break down those 20 students and see in this model, 15 are basic, and then 5 of them are ESOL or ELL. So how would we actually be funded for that? Well, you take the 15, and then you take the 5 that have a little higher weighting, a 1.65, or I should say a 1.165. And then actually for these 23 students, the weighted FT comes out to about 20.8. So I put that there just for us to be thinking about, just because we have all these students enrolled all year long, it is important on how we capture those numbers in those periods.
And what does 20.825 represent?
That is weighted FT, which is yes,
Money-wise.
it equates to money, sir, eventually funding. And they take those 2 captures, 1 in October and 1 in February. This would be a high school. In high school, the cost factor is lower than 1. So if we look at, there's 32 students in a high school class, 1 transferred and 1 absent during that October capture week, we would only get credit for the 30 students that are in attendance. And if it broke out between 20 basic, 5 ESOL, and 5 CTE, then all of a sudden you start doing the math problem there, right? The program cost factors, the 0.972 for the basic, the 1.165 for the ESOL, and then the 1.081 for the CTE. So for 32 students in high school, we get about credit for 30.67. So that's not a good business model, right? We would want to get paid more, but that's statutory. We do not set up this model. So it is important that we make sure all of our students are here for the maximum period so that we get full funding. These 3 bullets are very, very critical.
Go back 1 slide, Mr. Spolsky.
Yes, sir.
And just for the overall board, so at the middle school level, we get funded for 6 classes. At the high school, 6 classes as well, but we teach 7. And there used to be a number, I could be a little bit off, there used to be a number that basically you're looking to get at the high school level, like 0.95 of the kids that are in essence going to be there. And Mr. Spolsky can clean up exactly what that means. But now where students have so many different opportunities of online, or because if there's 24 credits to graduate, but they have 28 options because of a 7-period day, some of them with online classes, if they took all of them, all 7, and online, some students would have 30 plus credits. But the opposite also occurs, where because you have the 24 credits, and you have the 28 opportunities, students, they're not necessarily coming, especially their junior and senior year, for the full 7 or the full 6 or even the full 5. So when that happens and there's other opportunities, we're not receiving the full FTE for those students. So that's just another challenge that we have in public education at the high school level to receive that funding.
So I'd like to address that. So that's something that we don't bring out a lot, is that we're one of the few districts left that still offers that 7-period day. And of course, we have to fund it. So saying what you just said, Mr. Chambers, why do we keep it? I know you have an answer for that.
No, absolutely. So
Yeah.
you look at the opportunities that we
Right.
have for our students, and Okaloosa students are very competitive at Florida, Florida State, UCF, and you go forward to colleges outside our state. And what colleges look at is, in essence, are you taking the most rigorous courses that your school can offer, and then how do you do amongst them? But then also, when you look at the strong band programs that we have, the chorus programs, the theaters, as well as our CTE courses and others, we provide those opportunities. And some districts, or many districts throughout the state, they went away from the 7-period day for financial reasons. We've stayed with that. Could that become something that has to be looked at way down in the future or in the future? Maybe. However, I think it's important, the 7-period day, for the opportunities that we provide for our students.
Yeah, thank you for that answer, because I agree with you that as long as we can maintain that financially. But Mr. Spolsky, if I'm sitting out there in the public and don't have much of a background on this, explain the money that you're talking about associated with these numbers. That money is coming from the state, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And it basically goes to what?
Funding of personnel. The model over the years hasn't changed much in the amount of money that we receive from Tallahassee through the Florida Educational Finance Program is absorbed by the cost of
Basically, we're talking about how many teachers and employees we
paras,
can maintain
teachers,
based on
administrators.
this.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
It would be interesting to find the statistics on the 7-period districts and their ranking in the whole state.
Good point.
Mr. Spolsky,
Sir.
is there any identifiable connection to public policy that we can figure out? Why would high school students be funded less than one? See, 0.972. Middle school kids, I don't think.
Right. So they haven't fiddled with these program cost factors that much over the years. They have just released the program cost factors for virtual, but I'll let Ms. Perry kind of weigh in on some of that. It's interesting.
And as she comes up, when we say they, that's the state who dictates these program cost factors.
Right, and what they do, we have to do a cost report at the end of every year to report how much money we spend in each of the different categories. And the state collects that from all school districts, and that's what they use for program cost factors. When I had an opportunity to talk to someone at DOE, and I asked why the program cost factors were continuing to go down in the lower grades and the upper grades. And they said that they just always make middle school one, and then they adjust the others based on that. And I think that it's like a snowball's effect. They give us less money, we have less money to spend. So since we have less money to spend, then they lower the lower the program cost factor because it's based on expenditures. And so you're going to constantly, it's not a good.
Isn't that kind of like penalizing us?
Yes.
It's like an ice cream cone licking itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And as a reminder to the board, which I know you don't need a reminder, and when you look at just how we're funded, that Florida Education Finance Program, and one of the big pieces is the base student allocation, which was like 160-something the previous year, additional. This year it was 47 additional, which that does not keep up with inflation. And then you also couple that with the program cost factors also going down as well. It's just it's a challenge, but it's a challenge that we meet, but it is a challenge.
And Superintendent, the other side of that equation is class size. Because being compelled to meet those various requirements of the law is the other side.
Well, and I'll say class size is definitely a challenge. And I will say there's some flexibility. However, I'll just take myself as a teacher. When I started, I had 35 kids in my classroom. And I'll never forget when we went to 28, how excited I was to get the 7 desks out of there and how much more space that created. Now, of course, that was back in the 90s. So I'm not suggesting that classes necessarily be that. However, class size numbers, if it's a fixed, that is a strong, that's a financial cost and a strong financial cost. So having some flexibility is important, but it's still something that's challenging.
And now it's an average. It's not this class can only have 23. It's an average thing, right?
So there is a school-wide, there's a class average, but there's now some flexibility that's provided.
Right.
And you can clarify that if you need to, Mr. Spolsky.
Stay here, Jim.
You hear that?
Yes, sir. Yeah, there are classes that are designated when we do our class size average piece, and we have to watch those numbers because some of those numbers are smaller classes with ESE students, so we have to look at all of those pieces, the state, the contract, and then the actual, and we're watching those very closely.
And if a student's taking something online that they have to be in the building, or do we get credit for that because they are one of our students?
You're talking about money and no.
Do they count in the FTE?
Okay, they count FTE for whichever school they're taking online. If they're doing the Okaloosa online, then we get that through the Okaloosa online school. If they're doing Florida Virtual is going to get the weighted FTE. And then remember that several years ago, what we used to, if a student was going full-time at a school and then also taking online classes, we'd earn maybe 1.2 FTE. But several years ago, they made it so that it's prorated. So if we have someone going to our school full-time and they decide to take a couple of classes online, dual enrollment or whatever, we're not going to get a whole FTE for those students, even though we're educating them the whole day.
Wow. What about dual enrollment?
It would be the dual enrollment, we get the FTE for that because then we turn around and pay the college.
Okay.
And then remember, our students who take Okaloosa online right now, though we're in the FTE capture date, it's a completion model. And so that money will end up funneling in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
And the Florida virtual one doesn't come to us at all.
We get the FTE and then we have to pay Florida Virtual.
Back.
And we usually have to pay them more than the FTE we earn.
And the only reason someone would do Florida virtual is we don't offer it on Okaloosa, basically.
Or
Okaloosa online.
It could be a matter of choice and remembering that our Okaloosa online teachers, thank goodness for them, but they're working all day. And then this is something that they do in addition, whereas Florida Virtual, those teachers, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them, that's what they do all day.
How much is a single FTE this year?
Money was.
Sorry, the question was, how much is a?
I'm trying to remember.
89.
You're talking about the cost associated?
No,
You're
we're talking about
the
it.
base student allocation.
They student, yeah.
Yeah,
And this
Yes,
is
Ed.
bad that I cannot remember how much.
you
it
just
is.
ballpark, that's fine.
It was $47 more than it was last year.
Oh, boy.
I'm thinking around 5,000.
It's usually in the above the 5,500 to 6,000 area. I think 5,700-ish, but we'd have to double check that and get that to you.
Yes, I will.
Okay, thanks.
So the net of last year, if we look at where we were, 6 kids, remember we want kids to sign up for 6 periods, that's very important. We then take the program cost factors and we put those next to the FTE. You can see we look at last year's final adjusted unweighted FTE for 25-26 at 27,829, and where we are based on the numbers from last week. As we do an estimate, the deficit's 452.27. So I put Julie here to look at this with me, because whenever over the last 3 years, we had a little bit of a deficit there, about 23. Then last year we had a bump of 345, and where we are this year, as it comes to strategically planning for this, to make sure that we are in good standing. Ms. Perry and I conference constantly, along with Ms. Meserve, pushing us the FTE numbers. It's critical that we keep an eye on this.
So the 452, that's how many FTE we're down right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Based on our October projections?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
And so go back to the question. So the number is 5372, I think, is the
Correct.
the FTE. And then going back here, so this is the phenomenon, I'll call it that, that's happening across the state. When you look at the impact of Family Empowerment Scholarship, I think our strongest impact is in the elementary grade levels, specifically kindergarten being the most impactful. So it's something that we talk about, and we talk about the marketing aspect, talk to our principals about how we're doing that. And we'll continue to brainstorm more and more on that, but it is an impact across the state.
So that's a couple $1 million.
So that is the question. And so luckily we have an excellent CFO who plans accordingly. So we already know when we get our FTE, there's a certain amount that she will also put in FTE reserves. So we plan for that. We plan for shortfalls. So we are prepared for it as we go into continue this year. But still it's impactful.
Is that right? Is that a couple $1 million, a little bit over?
It's about 4 million when you take into account all the different funding sources.
So that 452 number, is that what we anticipate the number of students for the year?
Yes,
That's a yearly figure?
Estimated annual.
It's not a semester?
less than what we originally projected.
Right,
Yes, sir.
annual. All right, so 452 students less than we projected. And I know the state also gave us a projection, and we always, in the past at least, projected less than what the state said. Was that the case again this year? Because that number could have been a lot larger.
No, the state actually was rather low. We thought we were going to make a little bit more than what the state said, but we had to adjust down to what the state said,
Okay.
which was the 27,829. But now it is even lower.
And what's the cause of that? 452 students.
That's the question.
That is the question.
Yeah.
A big piece of that is Family Empowerment Scholarship.
Okay,
That's
so
it.
they're taking the scholarships and going somewhere else.
That's one of them, Doc. FES is one of them in the lower grades. Remember, the lower grades is where we saw that significant impact. We also are lower enrollment in the central and the south end of the county as well.
Right.
Our birth rates are down.
Okay.
Housing costs are up. There's multiple variables that are affecting that right now, but kindergarten was a low enrollment year for us.
Well, it's on the table, so it's worthy of discussion. And Mr. Heinley, I think you made the remark at one time, at a certain point, there might be diminishing. I wouldn't want to think that we'll be down another 450 next year or 900.
This is not sustainable. I mean,
Well, and I think, Mr. Heinley, your remark was a while back that at a certain point, maybe we'll see that start to taper off. And I would say I certainly hope so, because that's a lot of teacher positions right there, 452 students. And I know that you guys have always been very judicious in allocations, and so you might not have allocated all of those positions that number would represent. Typically, you have allocated fewer.
And that's a very true statement, and that starts back in the March timeframe with Mr. Spolsky, with looking at every school's allocation. And we said internally that this is This is the amount that every school is going to get, which means that we're holding this many back purposefully. And then he judiciously will allocate out positions where needed. But classes are tighter than they've been in the past. But going back to the point and looking at where we are, looking at numbers across the state as well, and not every county, but many of the counties, we're seeing the impact of this. Next year, just to give you a glimpse, so at the end of this past year, when the student assessment results come out, and as you know, that goes to every single family, on that report lies, here's your family empowerment scholarship opportunity, so you can receive the $9,000-ish for your son or your daughter, or both, to go to whichever private school, or if you're in homeschool, to do that as well. And again, I don't say this as a whining piece. We need to do our part. We need to market our schools. We need to continue to do a good job. We talk about how do we get even more creative. And there will be some things that as we go into this next school year, budget-wise, when we do our final budget, you'll probably see some things that are a little outside of the box. And I think that's where we have to get to. We may have to spend a little bit of money in order to get some students back. When you look at families who have the opportunity to receive $9,000 for homeschool, when you look at families who can receive it for private school, when you look at now there's opportunities at a local, let's call it mall, and there might be one room there that students can come in and out all day. There's those type of opportunities that are now there for families. When you can use the $9,000 for a YOLO board, when you can use the $9,000 to go to Disney World, when you can use the $9,000 for these different opportunities, I understand. I spoke to some of our local legislators recently, and I think there's a thought process that public education is changing, and those in public education have to figure out how to change with the times. And I think we've been talking about this for about a year now of what do we need to do to combat some of this. But there's a reality. You know, we're one of the top school districts in the state. Mm-hmm. And so the other 66 are also having these types of conversations, these type of issues. And again, and I say it just like when I go out and speak, I'm not going to whine about it. We have to do what we need to do to still be a strong school district, and we will. But with that will come tough decisions. And with tough decisions, you have those who appreciate the decision and those who do not. But this is a pivotal time in public education.
Do they, your February FTE review from the state, they average the October one and the February one?
Yes, this is survey 2, and then February is survey 3, and they bring those together.
That's the final, yeah.
They add it together. And February is historically lower than October, but Wendy has taken that into account when she's made this projection, that she's projecting, because what you do is you get a half in October and you get the other half in February. So she has projected based on that.
Do they do all the districts at the same time, or do they have different varying dates?
It's all at the same time.
Date certain is October 6th, October 10th this year, and we're all simultaneous.
Mm-hmm.
So what if we had a flu epidemic in October or February, and we have massive outage in schools due to something outside of our control? That's going to affect us negatively, correct?
Well, sure. I remember when we went through date certain with COVID, and there was some review of those numbers, and we looked at historical numbers to help kind of balance some of those pieces. But date certain is no, you don't mess with that. Those weeks with the state, you make sure all your kids are there. And in fact, I was going to mention on our next slide, Mr. Heinley, this is what we push out really in August and September. Is we get ahead of those dates. So right now, we'll start planning for the February date certain because it's that important. Some of the topics that we went over in the training with the September was ESC special program reporting, FTE reporting as it pertains to bell schedules, as it pertains to minutes, unfunded programs, all those pieces on how those details are reported for each of those captures. All of the school staffs and the registrars and the guidance counselors have Wendy on speed dial for that, so that when the October date certain week comes, we have strong packages and strong reporting for that. But you're right. That's a critical time to make sure all registrars and schedules and everything is tight. We have informed schools for many years, you do not do any schedule changes. You don't do any big things that are happening during FTE week. That's a sacred time.
Well, Mr. Destin needs to schedule his snowball events during those weeks.
That's right. I think of fish fry.
Mr. Spolsky, of the 452 number, what percentage of it would you estimate is elementary school?
Well, that's a loaded question, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
We're lower in the K-5 this year in enrollment, and I'll break that down for you. But here's the real issue in secondary, specifically 9 through 12. Freshmen take 6 to 7 to 8 classes. Sophomores take 7 classes. Juniors take 5 classes, and seniors take 3 classes. And when you're doing that across our high schools and some of the K-12s out there, you find that with the lower program cost factor for the high schools plus the lower kindergarten through 5 enrollment, it's probably an even split between those two.
I'm just sort of interested in what may happen in February. Do we see some of these elementary school students? It's not as it's not so easy to be a teacher. Like, there's a lot of folks who are like, oh, look, money. And then they'll say, yeah, for a lot of reasonable reasons that they don't want to enroll their child. And they find out that it is way more complicated than what they thought. And so they might stick them back into school.
It is, but what we saw was our kindergarten class was about 200 to 300 down this year. So of that 452, about 300 were kindergarten. They probably won't start until first grade next year, though. We do have some coming back. We saw about 14 are going to start this week, but they're not kindergartners.
Okay.
And while Wendy's up here, because to me this is a good discussion, and Dr. White knows very well because he used to do it, and I'll just use the term back in the day, when we would do FTE projections, it would be within 5 kids, it would be within 2 students.
Yeah.
Now, when you factor in family empowerment scholarships, onlines, the different offerings, I would assume, Ms. Meserve, it's a much more difficult science.
It is much more difficult. We went from about 1,800 scholarship students last year to probably about 3,000 this year, so there's a significant growth. We outpaced what the DOE expected last year. We probably will again this year as the legislature continues to provide those opportunities.
And remember, those 3,000, the vast majority of those 3,000 students never stepped foot in Okaloosa County ever. And so that almost $28 million that funds family empowerment scholarships, that shows up in our budget, is a pass-through. And again, the vast majority of them never stepped foot in Okaloosa County ever.
So, Mr. Chambers, I know you have the Champions of Education group and other things. Are you and your staff showing this information to those leaders in our community to show the effects? Because that affects communities, not just, of course, school district immediately, but it filters out into our communities, businesses. Have you been sharing this information in some venues with them?
Absolutely, and others. And again, I'm all for family choice, and I've said it before. I think the Family Empowerment Scholarship is there for those who want to utilize it. In my perfect world, the Family Empowerment Scholarship would be funded outside of the Florida Education Finance Program.
Right.
It'd be its own district and not tied to our budget. And then families still have the choice to do what they would like. So I'm not against the choice
Right.
piece, but the impact to the budgets is something that I think is impactful.
that people need to be aware of. So this year as we move towards the new legislative thing and moving into 26, are we going to be talking with legislatures about trying to make that change to putting that empowerment into a separate funding situation different? Is that one of the things we're trying to emphasize?
Well, absolutely.
Where did they come up with the almost $9,000? Is that average throughout the state property tax or our area?
Well, like on the final conference report, or the second FEFP for our district, our school students average 9,000 per. When you take the base student allocation, the class size, the SAI, our local 748 taxes. So when you look at everything, it averages 9,000.
And when you include those level 4 and level 5 ESE students, that's a lot of money.
And what do our students that we get funded for average out to?
The 9,000, 9,000,
Our Okaloosa
Yes.
County students?
yes.
No. But when these students are maybe not in private schools, but what they're doing online or whatever, they're at home, aren't they still allowed to use some of our services or be part of their assigned homeschool on some activities like sports?
We actually had to fund an employee within our ESE department who one of their main responsibilities is the Family Empowerment Scholarships, because if a student with disabilities wants to enact that scholarship, there's still certain things that we have to do. So there's other costs associated with it as well.
So they get some benefits from the public school system while they're not actually enrolled. Their funding is going to another
Going to their
situation.
pocket.
Yeah.
I will say the state has done a better job this year with the counting of the students. So I think that's a positive. So now Ms. Meserve gets numbers of who, not numbers, gets names of who is receiving a Family Empowerment Scholarship, so we can cross-reference it with who might be in our schools. And if they're in our schools full-time, then those names are submitted. If they're in our schools part-time, then we have the ability to bill, which we will do as well.
And just to speak to what Mr. Chambers just alluded to, the last few years of the scholarship program, there was no accounting from the DOE on that. So we had parents who would take the scholarship and then enroll in the school district. So they were basically double dipping. They have put some guards into place this year for that, so that they have to have a withdrawal form from the school district or something stating they are not enrolled with us.
How long do you think that's been going on?
Since the beginning of the program, so
Which is-
6, 7, 8 years.
So
It just continued to grow.
we've probably lost a lot of money.
Sounds like a good Doge project.
Yeah.
Wow,
It'd be better,
I could investigate themselves.
No kidding.
wow.
it'd be better to go apply for a refund on your property tax and give them the money. So,
I don't know. All of this is wild considering the fact that all you have to do is look at Arizona and see how they blew $1 billion hole in their budget with vouchers, and they're struggling worse than us because they don't have a gigantic tourism economy and the third largest economy in the country to start making up some of those gaps. But we're getting there. They don't have a plan. They just jammed it through in 22. I watched it.
Wow, it's just mind-boggling.
Anything else, sir? Sir?
Thank you for all the
Yep.
stats.
So I appreciate the rich discussion there. And again, it's, we're going to control what we can control and make decisions accordingly. And this is the environment in which we're in. And I tell people all the time, and when we go around to the schools, we're in front of them and the faculty, this is the best profession that folks can be in. And I truly believe that because we make a difference. And we will continue, like I said, to make decisions accordingly and still have a fantastic school district.
All right, Superintendent, anything else?
That is it.
All right, sir, thank you. All right, so that takes us to board members' announcements, and Mr. Destin, if you don't mind, I'll start with you today.
You changed it up on me. I thought I was going to go.
I know, I'm sorry.
Nothing really, other than I'm excited to have the softball team here tonight. They worked really, really hard, and I'm so happy they're going to be before us. I know they went before the city of Destin, city of Fort Walton, and I know we're awfully proud of them, so they'll be here tonight. And then, oh yeah, this is the last meeting I'll have to be able to get on my soapbox and evangelize the fish fry for Silver Sands. So if you have not bought your tickets, Miss Gilmore over at Silver Sands has a link directly on the website. Go buy them electronically. Get there early, and if you just want to support, just buy a few tickets. If you don't redeem them, that won't be the end of the world. They'll get the money. So,
Now, is that Thursday and Friday? I had it on 2 dates,
so there's a fish fry. That's the Niceville Chamber on Thursday night, and then there is a fish fry at Silver Sands
on Friday.
on Friday
Okay,
from 5 to 6:30. So we're going to do it right before the Choctaw Fort Walton game.
okay.
And the more the merrier.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Destin. All right, Ms. Evanchik.
I'm just trying to get my head clear over all of that last discussion we had. It's just, okay, I'm gonna get upbeat now. I'm ready. Okay, first of all, go Gators. They are 8-0, yes. And rolling in, I know that the Choctaw Indians are also 8-0. To have two teams undefeated is exciting for our district, but the Gators are 8-0, and they're moving along here, so looks like they're in playoff contention, which is great. So I'm very proud of them. So let's talk about the foundation. Our next meeting, board members, on the 27th on the workshop, members of the Public Schools Foundation will be here to give us a report on how that's going. And it's exciting to see what they're doing. Besides my talking about them, you don't hear as much about what they're doing, but they're going to be able to spell out everything that they've got working. And one of the events that they've been doing the last few years is a barbecue and bingo event coming up on November 6th. And this year we're having it with one of our business partners over at the Shoe Institute in Fort Walton on Hill Avenue. That's a change of venue, but that'll be exciting. And all the money raised on this barbecue and bingo goes back into those teacher grants, classroom grants. So all the money goes back to go back to the classrooms, which is exciting. And usually we make some good money, and we're able to give those grants, which is exciting. So they'll be here next time, and then put on your calendar November 6th for the barbecue and bingo. Okay, the next thing is I want to congratulate Principal Michelle Heck, her administrative staff, and the faculty and staff over there at Choctaw. Last Friday, not only was it their school's homecoming, but we added on top of that the ribbon cutting for their front new entry, and something quite unique to their school, which is a totem pole, which nobody really else has. But most of us know that homecoming day in a high school already presents challenges of the excitement and the activities and the coming and the going. So adding that to it, and this year they had an unprecedented amount of class reunion for alumni in there. It was definitely a packed house. So we had all those extra folks. Then when we went from the homecoming activities to the front of the building for that ribbon cutting, we added in some of our elected officials and other people in the community, and it went seamlessly. And that's a credit to Ms. Heck and her staff and the work they've done, the organization they had to do, moving the things there, literally moving chairs and all that, and microphones, and very well appreciated. And the reason I'm talking about is I did have the honor of working on that committee for the totem pole for the couple of years, and it was exciting to get to present that and dedicate that piece to the school, and everything. It was great. It was a great ceremony, which involved current students, a lot of alumni, and of course, folks from our school district. So it was exciting, but shout out to Principal Heck and all of them, because that's a lot to throw on a school on a Friday. So it was great. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evancheck. Mr. Hinley.
Okay, first kudos to Ms. Card for your publication here. That is excellent. Very, very good stuff right there. On 8/11, the Pine View principle. So, working on the construction side, forget about that. So you got to get a huge staff up to run this K-8 school. So when do you think you'll have the selection process starting at your principal and then on down?
So principal, the advertisement will go out tomorrow. So at the next school board meeting, we will bring forward the recommendation of who will be the next principal. Dr. Hale in HR has already done a great job of mapping out principal with the assistant principal, one assistant principal will come on board, when we'll have a registrar on board, a bookkeeper, and then even someone within athletics at a certain point, because we want Pine View to be able to start and be the comprehensive school, which includes the academics, the athletics, the arts. So all of that is timelined out. The second semester is when the majority of the other folks will come on board. The principal who will be hired will serve in their current role, as well as starting the process of the new school. We will also fill whoever gets this position, their school as well. So then there's some cross-shadowing going on. But to be very specific, it's all timelined out. But the second semester is when the other folks will come early in the second semester.
Yeah, and, you forget about that side when you're focused on building the school, but that's huge.
And if you don't mind, Mr. Hindley, so Mr. Meyer, who's leading this venture, and so it's what the school principal is going to have to eventually do, but it's also right now what each of the affected in a good way, affected departments are doing, because it's not just the construction. It's making sure that the staffing is going to be there, that the textbooks are going to be there, the classroom materials, other classroom materials are going to be there, making sure when we do the hiring process, we do it the right way. So there's so much that still has to be done, even though we're so far now, but there's still a lot to be done to ensure that we're ready. The construction of this, it's going to take deep into the summer. Deep into the summer. So Mr. Meyer, he likes to come and tell me he thinks it's going to be done in February, and I keep telling him. He tempers me. He tempers me. But it will be deep into the summer when we'll be ready.
Okay, good info. Forgot about that part of it. Fellow board members, I'm on the Teacher of the Year committee again this year, and I might have some scheduling issues in there. I'm figuring it out with the representative. So there might be a chance I request one of you guys to step in for me. I want to do it, but I might be out of town during some crucial times. So just that's a heads up. So think about it.
Do we need to designate an alternate? Or is it just, hey, whoever's available?
Let me figure out if it's worth, but I just want to throw that out there because right now I got some really good potential conflicts. Okay, last thing, continual growth. Today is the 13th, correct? Who was the 13th president of the United States?
Go ahead.
I don't know.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, you do. You know that. Go ahead and think. Go ahead, you get it.
Van Buren?
Wrong.
See?
Oh. Oh,
Anybody else?
I think you've stumped us
Mr.
today.
Superintendent? Good
Fillmore.
boy lawyer?
Fillmore.
Oh, Millard Fillmore. All right, very good.
Yeah, I think-
A little unknown one.
Yep.
He took president because Zachary
Some
Taylor
13
died.
president knowledge.
All right, so who was the 44th? You got to add 13 to 31. Who was the 44th president? Start thinking. He's still alive.
Wouldn't that be W?
Nope.
No, that was 43.
He was 43?
President Obama.
Yeah, Obama, right. Yeah, okay, got it.
All right.
Can I ask a quick question on, you brought up a point about administrative for Pine View. Are we going to open with the dean, or is that going to be sort of figured out later?
So where we are on October 13th, 2025, the current plan would be that we would open with the dean. And I'll say all of that will be subject to what next year's budgets will look like.
All right, anything else?
Yeah, I have one other thing. I wanted to call up Mr. Dingus, who is the president of our OCEA, because he just came back from a big conference. Would it be okay if he shared some things that he did? Yeah, I told you I was going to call you up.
I thought you said you weren't going to do it.
Yeah, well, just give us an overview of where you were and what happened, please, because that does have some impact on the employees.
So it was the FEA Delegate Assembly, which is one of, if not the largest Democratic convention in Florida. So we put forward our business items, and there was a professional learning day that was associated with that. So I attended 2 sessions, and it was a good time all around. You get to see democracy in action.
Anything interesting, different that we might need to know about coming down?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, it's all pretty standard, just running the business of the union.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, and what I would say, and I'm always a little superstitious about this when we talk about wins and losses. Having been in the coaching business, you don't want to, if you're superstitious at all, you don't want to jinx yourself. So, but I'll just say congratulations to Choctawhatchee, and kind of leave it at that right now. And also, Ms. Vanchek, thank you for you and your committee for conducting a wonderful ribbon cutting and consort with the school, and Superintendent, you and your staff for being there. And that was an event that I know will kind of go down in history. Mr. Heinley, I know you were there too, so thanks for that. Okay?
And Dr. White, if you don't mind, so first of all, I thought it was an absolutely fantastic event, but from where I was sitting and when I looked, and so you have Ms. Vanchek, the former teacher at Choctaw, there all those years, and the pride. And then looking at you and your wife, alumni of the school, and then all that you've done for Choctaw over the years, I felt prideful just to see yourselves and others who are there. And it's just like we said to the students, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you might be in these seats for something else at Choctaw. But I think we're blessed to have 2 board members who represent that school well. But just looking at you and your wife there, the big smile that you had on your face, it was neat.
And 4 of the 7 principals were there.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Dr.
always
Hill.
nice, yeah, always nice to have that. I want to, are you going to say about the award that Amber got, Ms. Floyd got?
I was going to do it at a different time.
Oh, okay, sorry.
In conjunction with something else.
Okay,
However,
let's-
however,
I just am very proud of
that's
her.
all right. But so one of the 2 will now come out. But we were fortunate to go to the Niceville Chamber, and they asked that Mrs. Floyd attend. And of course, we already knew what was happening, and she was presented with the U Rock Award. And the U Rock Award goes to those in the community who go above and beyond and do great things, not only for whatever entity that they're with, but just the community in general. And for me personally, I've always known she rocks, but to see those who sometimes are behind the scenes, who are so impactful that other folks don't necessarily realize, but I think she also realized the amount of people who do realize all that she does. So for me, it was also another source of pride to see someone who already has a full-time job keeping me in line to do other things outside of this in the community and still make a difference. So she received the U Rock Award.
Do they still give the rock? You got the rock?
You got the rock award.
That's awesome. Congratulations. That's very good. Okay. All right, so that takes us through board members' business. All right. And we get down to section 14, public comment. That'll be for any other item. And then we do have some public hearings. Let me read those very quickly. 15.1, public hearing for revision of School Board Policy 04-28, Emergency Operations, School Safety and Security, presented by Mr. Dean and recommended by the Superintendent. And then 15.2, public hearing for revision of School Board Policy 04-49, District Harm Prevention and Threat Management, presented by Mr. Dean and recommended by the Superintendent. And that takes us through all the business I have here. Mr. McKenna, so we're good?
Yes, sir.
All right, this meeting is adjourned.